This was a tough night all around for A's fans. A tough loss of a game and a tough loss of an all-time great.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's. This is the podcast where we talk about the Oakland A's as long as they're in Oakland, all throughout this, well, let's be fair and call it a bittersweet 2024 season. I am your interim host, and who knows, I may be the host for the rest of the year, Paul Francis Sullivan, but you can call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for over a decade now. I've lived in the Bay Area for a very long time. I've witnessed A's playoff games in multiple decades, and I'm here to talk about the A's in their final season in Oakland before they go to Sacramento, presumably for the next 50 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Hey, I'll admit I have a competitive side, and it's a competitive side that, quite frankly, is fueled by Monopoly Go. It's a mobile hit twist on Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and on Google Play. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, or on Instagram. And I am at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Jackie Robinson Day didn't go as well as A's fans would have hoped, especially coming off of 3 straight series wins. And of course, now we have the news that J.D. Davis has a right groin strain. He's placed on the injured list. An old friend, Sonny Gray, who, lest we forget, threw the complete game victory to clinch a spot in the wild card game of 2014, a game I think we'd all just rather Men in Black out of our brains right now. Sonny Gray came back and pitched really well in the Oakland Coliseum. And the Cardinals, who were not off to a great start in a very weird National League Central, got 6 shutout innings from Sonny Gray. Stripling didn't pitch badly. Kelly and Adams did well out of the bullpen. Let's be positive first. I'm all about positivity. The bullpen gave the A's 3 1/3 shutout innings. Well, actually, that's not 100% because Kelly let up a run. Okay, I'm trying to be positive. Hey, Esteury Ruiz is back. Apparently, he's wearing the right, armbands or whatever that doesn't insult the team. They figure, okay, he should come back from the minor leagues. And what did he do? He provided all the offense. He homered. Oddly, he pinch hit for Butler, who provided all the offense just the other day, but fine. He came out and he homered, which means he's batting .500 with an OPS of 1.694. Granted, a small sample size, but maybe he's someone you want to keep in the lineup. Maybe you want to keep Geloff in the lineup. He got a pair of hits. Toro got a double. Hey. And Blade got a hit. Huh? That's not bad. That's not bad. They pulled off a double play. Huh? I'm trying to be positive here because, one of the things I'm trying to do here is to try to not be a voice of doom and gloom when we look at a team that we all know is going to skedaddle. So I'm trying my best. And let's be honest, they're playing the Cardinals and they're at home. Cardinals, throughout Gray, fine. We know Gray is a good pitcher. Sears, who, lest we forget, was great the last time he pitches, going up against Lance Lynn. That's going on for tonight's game. And Lynn has been up, Lynn has been down. That's a winnable game. If they can win that and they have a getaway game on Wednesday, which is an afternoon game, Blackburn against Mats, I like the A's chances in that. Just win tomorrow. And eventually you could have there's still a shot to make it 4 series in a row. And look, Texas is still in first right now. The Angels won, but even with the loss, the A's are only 2 games out of first. Just 2 games out of first. And here's something I want. This is it in some ways, and let me know if you think I'm crazy for thinking this. But I am hoping this would be a borderline success for this season, which of course has left such a bitter taste in all of our mouths. I am hoping the A's could be in first place for one day, at least one day after April. That would be, I mean, the great is so they can be in first place in June, because then you think, well, maybe they'll give you a summer. But no, I don't think that's going to happen. But, you know, it's only two. We only got 2 more weeks left in April. And the AL West is really, really weird right now. Everyone's all scrunched together. No one team is, taking the proverbial bull by the horns. And the Angels, who are not off to a great start by any stretch of the imagination, they're 8-8. They're 4-6 in their last 10, and yet somehow they're only half a game out of first place. Now, for Angel fans, and I'm down here in Southern California, for Angel fans, and they do exist, they've got a chip on their shoulder because they lost Ohtani. Everyone says they're a bunch of losers. They want to have a decent season, especially because they still have Mike Trout, and Mike Trout's angry. Fine. But can the A's just Rubik's Cube enough of these moments together? Get themselves a win. Put today, when Ruiz hit that home run, I thought, oh, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? Especially, I guess I was getting a little bit cocky after the big, huge comeback they had against Washington. But let's see what they're made out of. Focus. Keep that one game in there, and there you go. Now, the Davis injury is not it's not a great piece of news. This is a team that can't really afford to have lots of injuries on their team. Okay, that did allow them to bring Ruiz back, and who knows, maybe that is going to be something that we can look forward to. But hey, let's just focus. Let's focus. By the way, I want to address something, and thank you for people who brought this up. I'm sorry about that. We had a tech issue with the episode I did for yesterday's show, and it's been reposted. Thank you, Jeff Carr from the from Lockdown Network, for fixing the issue. I don't know why it happened. I do not understand. Forgive me. But there is something oddly appropriate about a year where everything seems to have gone possibly wrong, and a podcast episode which I did, which was meant to be nothing but positivity about a fun weekend, and still something went wrong. But today was a sad day for Oakland A's fans, not just because of the loss. Losses are going to happen. We all knew they were going to lose a bunch of games. But this was also a game where an all-time great Oakland A, who was part of some of the great moments in the history of this franchise, became someone who will be included next year's in memoriam video. And one of the greats who started 3 straight World Series games. I've been told I'm a competitive person, but, maybe that's true. I don't like to be wrong. When I am and I'm caught, like the Ohtani thing, I'll admit that I'm wrong. But most of the time, I want to be right and I want to win. All right, fine. I got a competitive side. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist of Monopoly where you play not one, not two, but on hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part for me is messing with my friends. I'm that kind of a guy. I could charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like Monopoly, but now I could rob their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboard show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people from all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free at the App Store or at Google Play. Let's hear from our friends from Game Time. You know what Game Time is? I'll tell you exactly what Game Time is. It's the best way to get tickets because there's so many great things to get tickets for. Hockey playoffs are starting soon. NBA playoffs are starting soon. There's great comedy, great theater, great baseball going on. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app usually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and view from the seats, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They got zone deals where you could save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time select the seats. All in prices. You go to get this feature on Game Time, no hidden fees. That's the price that you pay. It's the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% the difference if you find a better deal. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. Almost forgot how to spell it. For $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, they're guaranteed. Hey, sports fans and football fans, it's time for Locked On's NFL Mock Draft live on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time, streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time, streaming live at Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. A player died today, a former Oakland A great, and that was Ken Holtzman. Ken Holtzman, in many ways, was one of the great unsung heroes of the great Oakland A's teams of the 1970s. He wasn't a Hall of Famer like Catfish Hunter or Reggie Jackson or Raleigh Fingers. He wasn't the electrifying superstar like Vida Blue or the bang the drum captains and leaders like Joe Rudy and Bando. But what he was a solid, super intelligent, really tremendous competitor who in some ways was the last piece of the puzzle. Charlie O'Finley, who owned the A's for many, many years, has got a lot of flack because of his quirkiness, because of his the fact that the A's players hated him, the fact that he tore down the great championship team. But remember, he was a super smart baseball guy. He was his own GM. So when you looked at the team that was built with Campaneris, with Joe Rudy, with Reggie Jackson, with Vida Blue, with Catfish Hunter, with Raleigh Fingers, he was the one who put that team together. And he saw that he was piecing together a tremendous ball club that won over 100 some odd games in 1971, but got absolutely 2-by-4'd by the Baltimore Orioles in the league championship series. A critical piece in the A's rebuild was Rick Monday. Rick Monday was the first ever player drafted. When they had the first ever amateur draft, the A's had the number 1 pick, and they used it to get Rick Monday. And he was a showcase. He was going to be the big, huge star of the A's alongside everybody else. And he was on that 1971 team. But Finley saw they needed to make a change if they were going to top the Orioles. The Orioles pitching staff was unbelievably deep. And while the A's had Vida Blue, who had just won the Cy Young Award and the MVP, and had Catfish Hunter, who was on his way to a Hall of Fame career, they needed another stud pitcher in their rotation. And so he flipped Rick Monday for Ken Holtzman. And this was a classic case of two players who were highly touted. Holtzman was also in that original draft, where the change of scenery worked out for both of them. Now, Rick Monday ultimately went on to become a big World Series hero for the Los Angeles Dodgers and became one of the most hated men in the history of Quebec Ask any Montreal fan about the significance of Rick Monday. But that's another story. Ken Holtzman sure looked like a star when he threw 2 no-hitters in Wrigley Field as a member of the Chicago Cubs. But for whatever reason, it wasn't completely clicking. Maybe he didn't get along with DeRocher. Who knows? But when they flipped Monday for Holtzman, Holtzman came to the A's, and suddenly they had that number 3 starter who could dominate. They had a pitcher who could pitch alongside anybody in that rotation. And because of that, you had Ken Holtzman being an innings eater. He gave him 265 in the third innings in 1972. He won 21 games back when people cared about that, and nearly threw 300 innings in 1973. And in 74, again, 255 in the third innings with an ERA around 3. Innings eater, winning games, throwing a lot of innings. And guess what he also did? He started Game 1 of the World Series in 1972. He started Game 1 of the World Series in 1973. And he started Game 1 of the World Series in 1974. He pitched 7 starts in the World Series, plus 1 game in relief. He came out of the bullpen in Game 7 of the 72 World Series. He wound up having a record of 4-1 with a good ERA. He had a tremendous ERA in his 4 trips to the League Championship Series and was an absolute stalwart for those A's teams that kept winning year in and year out, giving him innings and doing so with intelligence, not just flame throwing. And along the way, became a really unlikely answer to a trivia question, which was, what player has the most career wins for a pitcher who is Jewish? You would think it would have been Sandy Koufax. It was Ken Holtzman. Now, that's mainly because Koufax retired in his prime when he realized, my God, I'm never going to be able to use my arm again if I keep pitching. But Holtzman became a big hero of the Jewish community, especially in his native St. Louis. And he became a figure that, to this day, is considered one of the great figures in St. Louis sports history, even though he never pitched a single game for the Cardinals. A man beloved in St. Louis who pitched 9 years with the Chicago Cubs. But I digress. Eventually, as did everyone else in those great A's teams, Ken Holtzman wanted a raise. And with the specter of free agency looming upon it, he was traded away to the Baltimore Orioles after the 1975 ALCS. Actually, it was in the middle of spring training when a lot of the players on the A's were saying, hey, we want to be free agents in the year unless you pay us. And Holtzman was packaged with Reggie Jackson in the controversial trade that sent Reggie and Ken Holtzman. This is a wild trade, by the way. Reggie and Ken Holtzman, plus a minor leaguer named Bill Van Bommel, who never made the majors, was traded to Baltimore for Don Baylor, Paul Mitchell, and Mike Torres. There's a lot of talent that's traded away there. By the way, in case you're keeping score, Reggie, Ken Holtzman, and Mike Torres were all teammates on the 1977 World Series champion New York Yankees. But by then, Holtzman was a bit broken down. But he was a player who came up big in the postseason, and not just with his wins, not just throwing great games, but he actually hit a home run in the 1974 World Series that the A's beat the LA Dodgers. I miss pitchers hitting. I don't care. I liked having one league where they pitchers hit, another where they didn't, because the place went absolutely bananas. But Ken Holtzman, may he rest in peace. But the death of Ken Holtzman brings up another kind of disturbing element of the A's leaving Oakland, and that is the legacy of a player like Ken Holtzman, which will be hard to define after the inevitable move. Are you struggling to close deals? Business-to-business selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data enabling to help you unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you feel like a superstar today and sell like one too. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. Hey, here's a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local extras of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. Here's something that disturbs me about the death of Ken Holtzman and the inevitable move. When the A's move, and if they retain their name, if they become the Sacramento A's, or in the very, very tiny possibility they become the Las Vegas A's, you will see representations for the great A's players of the past there. Now, in Philadelphia, they have a statue of Connie Mack where they list the great A's players who played for the Philadelphia A's. But no doubt, if they wind up, I believe they're going to stay in Sacramento, because I'll believe Vegas when I see it. But wherever they wind up, they probably will have a place where they'll honor the great A's of the past, the way that the San Francisco Giants honor John McGraw, the way that they honor Bill Terry and Mel Ott and, frankly, Willie Mays and Monty Irvin, some people who were stars in New York. And they will do that inevitably. They'll have Ricky Henderson, the greatest athletic of all time. And they'll have Reggie Jackson, Raleigh Fingers, Dennis Eckersley, probably Dave Stewart. But, the people who are the great, probably Canseco, probably McGuire, if we're allowed to root for them again or bring them up again. But they will not have some of the players who, if you were witness to the game, that you will see the effect they had. The people like Bert Campaneris or Sal Bando or Carney Lansford or Dave Henderson or Rick Honeycutt, who were players on teams that won the World Series for the A's, their legacies will be lost. And for people of Sacramento or Las Vegas, they won't mean anything. In Dodger Stadium, they have mainly people to represent the glory years of the Los Angeles Dodgers, but they do have some people from the Brooklyn Dodgers that they honor. But they don't even honor some of the really huge ones, like Zach Wheat, who is a Hall of Famer for the Brooklyn Dodgers, is nowhere to be seen anywhere on there. And I was thinking about a name, George Shuba. Doesn't that sound like what Jabba the Hutt said when Luke Skywalker came into the throne room? George Shuba. George Shuba. People in Los Angeles, that name means nothing. And chances are you've never heard of him. But if you were a Brooklyn Dodger fan with that team that had superstars like Jackie Robinson, who we just honored, or Duke Snider, or Don Newcomb, or Pee Wee Reese, George Shuba was a beloved player on those Brooklyn Dodger teams. He was an outfielder, and he kind of played anywhere in the outfield where they needed him. He was a solid hitter, and he mainly was someone coming off the bench. He wasn't someone who was the big star, but guess what? He actually got some MVP votes in one of the years where the Dodgers went to the World Series, and was one of those players who, if you're a Dodger fan, you saw that the value that he brought to the team was greater than the numbers on the back of his baseball card. And if you were a Brooklyn Dodger fan, you probably had warm memories of someone like him. But chances are, if you're a Brooklyn Dodger fan who saw him play, the odds are you're dead. Or you were very, very young when you saw him play in the early to mid 50s. And if you're not a Dodger historian, wow, that name goes right over your head. Who? I'm afraid that may wind up being the legacy for Ken Holtzman. The people I've seen who have been writing and posting stuff about Holtzman are people who are from the East Bay, who saw him pitch, or some people are from St. Louis who it was great for representation to see a Jewish pitcher from the Midwest become an all-star. But his legacy will fade the further and further away the memory of the Oakland A's becomes. If they stayed, sometimes those players will come up in conversation, will come up in clips, will come up from old timers who saw the game. But Ken Holtzman, in a generation or two, may fade away like George Shuba, especially if the fans who saw him no longer have a team to root for. So until that happens, let's salute him. If you're an A's fan, you may want to salute the guy who started Game 1 of the World Series 3 straight years, of which the A's won all 3 of them. So rest in peace, Ken Holtzman. And hey, let's wish a happy birthday to another left-handed pitcher who won a World Series with the Oakland Athletics, and that's Curt Young, who later became a coach and was part of the 88, 89, and 90 pennant winners and was on the 89 World Series team. He didn't pitch in the World Series that year. He almost did. He's part of a bizarre trivia question, which was, who was the pitcher warming up when the earthquake hit before Game 3 of the World Series? Dave Stewart won Game 1. Mike Moore won Game 2. The first 2 games were non-competitive. I was there. I remember in 89, those first 2 games just were non-existent for the Giants. But it went back to Candlestick, and fingers were crossed for the Giants. We're going to be starting Don Robinson, and Bob Welch was going to be starting for the A's. But Bob Welch was hurt and probably wasn't going to make the start. And so Curt Young was warming up in the bullpen just in case Welch couldn't go through it. Instead, the earth shook, and the series was delayed 10 games. And by the time they came back, Stu pitched Game 1, Moore pitched Game 2. I remember some of my friends when I was in high school in the Bay Area when they announced that Stewart was going to start Game 3 after the earthquake. A couple of my Giant fan friends said, "Oh, that's not fair. They shouldn't be allowed to do that." Yeah, they did. He's on 10 days rest. But happy birthday to you, Curt Young. We never got to see how you do starting that game, and who knows? The results certainly did well for the A's. So I'm going to continue being your pinch hitting host here on Locked On A's. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter, or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I am your host, Paul Sullivan. You can call me Sully, and I am at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about the A's and talking about hopefully a series that can turn around and honoring the great Ken Holtzman. This has been Locked On A's. I am your guest host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.